If you are new here, welcome. If you are not, welcome back. Today we are diving into an updated weekly review. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I feel like every new season comes with kind of some tweaks and some changes that I'm making to my weekly review process. And this week is no different, especially because we are in 2026. I am now a full-time entrepreneur. It is so fun, but it is also so crazy, and there's so much to juggle, especially since I kind of have multiple businesses that I'm running. So I'm going to walk you through some of the updates I've made. I honestly think this is probably my favorite weekly review process I've ever created for myself. So from business check-ins to personal check-ins to health check-ins, it's got all the things to KPI check-ins. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and pop over to my weekly reviews, and we are going to look at the week where actually this one should say in progress, but I must have just never clicked the button because this is the week we just wrapped up. So I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I've kind of already done, some of the things that I'm wrapping up, and then we'll pick up from there. So I always start with planning, but that's actually what we're going to end with today, because when I sit down to do my weekly review, I reflect on the previous week first, and then I go into planning for the next week. So I've got a place where I can check in on my finances and my expenses. Clearly something's going wrong here. I must have mismarked something. So something's happening there. I'm not exactly sure what. I'll take a look at it later. I also, and I'm not going to show you this down here, financial transactions get pulled into my Notion system, and then I go through and I categorize them and I put them into a budget category so I can keep track of things. I'm just not going to show you guys that right now. Then I go through and I do a self-care progress check. So if I've weighed myself, I will log my weight. I haven't. So I go through and I say what phase of my cycle I'm in, what my baseline energy or what my energy has been like that week. So I have 3 options: depleted, low, baseline, and vary. How many workouts I did, what my sleep's at, and what kind of my mood and body image was this week, which I don't really feel like filling in this week. And then I do have a weight tracker where I can see my weight. And then I do a check-in. This is, if you've ever heard of Level 10 Life or the Wheel of Life, I do this every single week, and I've actually really come to enjoy it because I've started to notice particular patterns. So like, for example, in my mental and emotional health, let's actually look at the life area check-in that I just did for mental and emotional health. We're going to pop over to that database really quickly. And you will see when I did that check-in, I mentioned how I felt like I've been emotionally vulnerable week for me, but that tracks because I'm in luteal phase and I do tend to be more emotionally reactive during luteal phase. It's a phenomenon I've definitely noticed, and scoring myself week to week has really demonstrated that fully. This is actually a big reason why I've very much enjoyed this part of the weekly review process. Is I've started to notice patterns like that my mental and emotional health, I am more emotionally reactive during my luteal phase. So it's kind of a good note that I can have for myself. So I've just done physical health. And what I do when I do this is I click this do check-in button. And what it does is it creates a page in my check-ins database that links straight to these different areas of my life. So I'll click that. And then I found that just to kind of be consistent from week to week, I need to give myself some parameters on how to score myself. Finances is always an interesting one because I have aspects from multiple different areas. I think what I'm going to kind of focus on this week is top of mind. I'm probably more at a 4. And the reason for that is my income this month has been really low. And I've had the second month in a row with really big financial hits. But the reason I'm giving myself a 4 and not a 3 is because I've actually been really, really proud of how I've been navigating the financial stresses of this year so far. I've really been proud of how I've been making financial decisions and how to go about that. So that's kind of why I'm giving it a 4 and not a 3. Then I've got environment and home, which I'm crazy satisfied with my environment lately. I've been doing some investments over the last 6 months in my environment and it feels amazing. And then I have 2, I kind of rate each of my businesses separately. So this is my coaching business, and then I also have a tutoring business. I kind of rate both of them separately. And this is another one where I have stuff coming up in both areas. So I'd probably give myself a 5 here because the fulfillment is insane. I do have solid systems. I have good work-life balance most weeks, though it's been pretty shitty the past week, and I'm very aligned. So in a lot of ways, I'm here. But the places where I'm not is I have some income, but it's very inconsistent. So I'm probably more in the 5 because of that. All right, so then once I score everything, I can go over to the scores by week and I can see how things are changing over time. Also, it's just interesting to go in and see how things track over time. And you can hover on each of these. So I just started tracking this one. I just started tracking environment and home. My finances are improving from where they've been, but they're kind of fluctuating a bit. Friends and family is kind of on the rise. Mental and emotional health has been very stable, so I can kind of see what's been happening. And I think I just forgot to track personal growth that 1 week. Then what I actually go ahead and do is I have the weekly review GPT that basically goes through and analyzes everything. Let me show you what the directions for that weekly review GPT. I call it a GPT because I used to use it inside of ChatGPT. I moved it over into Notion. But basically what I have it do is I have it load the week. The time frame is from the last Monday to the current Sunday. And I have it look at my journal entries for the week. So it looks at this database. I have it look at my measurements. I have it look at my Wheel of Life check-ins. I have it look at my sales. So I tell it where to look for everything. And actually, I didn't do that for this one, apparently. I have it look at my notes. And I basically tell it what I want it to look for. So I want you to look at my weight, look at the trend over time, how it compares, how do my weekly life check-ins compare over time, dig deeper into what's going on in my daily journal entries, because though I journal on pen to paper, because I'm doing the artist way right now, I always copy my journal entry into Notion so that it can use that data for this. And I have it compare my sales, services, etc. to the previous month. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I pop it open, I say, act as my weekly review GPT and analyze my last week according to your direction. And you can see this is an update that I've really liked, is it can kind of break down what it needs to do into different tasks. So something that I always have my particular AI agent do, because I'm running multiple businesses from the same Notion hub, is I have it confirm the business context. So what business is it operating in? I think it kind of realized like, hey, we're in primary brain, which is mostly Coach Ellen, but it's going to look everywhere. And then it's going to kind of work through the rest of these. And you can kind of see how it's analyzing things. So this is what it noticed about my self-talk around body image. This is what it noticed in my days that I had mostly low steps, which is true. I had a big spike on Saturday, which is true, and that sleep was inconsistent, and that I only marked 3 nights as 7+ hours a week. That actually that is something that kind of can contribute to this, is if I've been slow about logging things or if I've forgotten to log things, that's going to impact things. It looked at my weekly check-in, it looked at my journaling themes, and so then I have it ask me some follow-up questions. I'm going to go ahead and scan through these and see if these feel worth answering. And yeah, I think some of them do. So I'm going to go ahead and answer these real quick. I also am getting irritated that I can't see more of this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop this open into the sidebar so I can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, so I went through and I answered those questions, but you will see that one of the things it does at the end here is it answers some core questions for me based on the patterns it's seeing. I've gone through and I've answered its questions, and I'm asking it to update its answers to those questions. It also tends to put these in second person and not first person, so I asked it to rewrite it in first person. Now, I know some people might not like that I'm using AI to do this part of the process, but what I've actually found really, really helpful about it is I find that it sometimes notices patterns that I'm not noticing. I actually even think the question it asked me up here was great. It said, what would you say was your biggest win that your nervous system doesn't want to count because it is not cash? And that really, really resonates with me, because there are so many things that I do not count as personal growth because it doesn't feel like growth in the conventional way. So I didn't ask it to do this, but it's actually going through and it is updating the actual sections of this template with the answers to those questions. I didn't ask it to do that, but I'm going to do that eventually, so I'm not mad about it. And you can see it did that for these 3 questions: what worked, didn't work, and what can I improve? And it did it for these 3 questions. This is also a recent update to the Notion AI agent where it shows me what changes it made. I love this update. It's so good. It's not something I thought I needed, but I love it. I love it. I love it. The next thing that I go ahead and do, and actually we're going to make the AI agent a little bit narrower. The next thing that I like to go ahead and do over here is I like to add in significant events. I keep track of significant events over the course of the year. It's something that plays into my yearly review, and it's something that I used to do at the end of the month. But what I've actually found is it's better to do it week to week, because I'm better at paying attention to what the significant events were of that week. I used to keep track of it in terms of memories, where I would just manually type those in. And this is one of the things that I was just like, I'm writing down these memories. Why not just add them to my significant significant events database. So it's I keep track of highs and lows in this database, so that they're already in there when I go to do my monthly and my yearly reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of those. And actually one of these is reminding me of a to-do that I have. I had a $3,700 car payment, and I want to go in and input all of my future car maintenance into my tasks database in Notion. It already houses so much stuff for me. And I do think it's really important for me to add those things as like tasks in my task database. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I just added that as a to-do. I had a challenging friend situation that I'm going to add in here, as well as a number of other kind of situations that I just want to keep private. So I'm going to add them, and then we're going to scroll down to the next section. All right, so now down in this section is my business reflection. So these are the clients that have been converted in the last month and where they came from. So that's something I like to keep track of. My sales, my month, this month has been a little low, but it's not over yet. We're going to keep going. And then my sales by product. So I like to be able to see these things when I'm kind of analyzing my business. And I'm going to go ahead and read the answers that it gave for how my business mindset was, what was my schedule like, and how did I feel about things. Okay. Awesome. I actually do really like the answers to those questions because I do feel like this validates what I have. So the next thing I do is I do a quick little KPI audit. This actually works out really well because I tend to do this process on Monday mornings, which is my CEO day, which is when I like to check into KPIs anyway. So I'm checking in on my YouTube subscribers. Similar to how I do the check-ins up here, I've really found this button, do check-in, works very, very well for me. So we're going to do the same thing down here, and I'm going to check in on these KPIs. And this is all set up so that it can automatically update what my latest score is, what my average is, and kind of my progress toward my goal, which right now for like YouTube subscribers is to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can start working toward monetization. Then we've got my email list, my school community members, which had some crazy growth this month because I was in a summit, my debt balance, my quality community interactions per week. This I need to find a better way to keep track of because right now I'm just going off of memory, but I will say I had about 3 or 4 people email me after I sent out a newsletter just to tell me how much it resonated. There were about 4 of those. And then I've had like 2 or 3 really quality community interactions in my school community this week. So I actually think we're at about 6. So that's really solid. Morning freedom. I only really had a 1 morning last week where I had the kind of morning freedom I want to have. So that's just telling, it's part of why I like to keep track of these things because my goal is to have 5. And here, this is just a binary. Do I feel like I was doing work that was energizing and not draining? And I would say yes for this past week. And then did I have white space? I don't remember if I was aiming toward having 40 hours of white space, but I probably had 5 hours of white space, which is not what I'm going for. So after I do that, what I like to do from there is I like to brain dump any new tasks. So these are all the tasks that I've created thus far today. I also like to go through my task inbox. So let's do that really quickly. Oh, I actually still need to do this for last week's call. So this is good because I need to do this today for this particular client. My bad. It's a very, very quick task though, so it'll be easy to tackle. But this is why I go through this. Go through my podcast guest submissions. I should do this today. This is something that is going to be a long-term project, so I need to figure out how I'm going to just like break this out. We'll schedule it on Friday though for now. Go through all templates and rename them to follow Notion's brand guidelines. I'm going to do this next Monday. Create a company template. I think it should be a task, but it's definitely like a subtask sort of situation. And I actually think I'm just going to make my first subtask that I need to break out. And we'll do that on Wednesday. Okay, I need to create a serial entrepreneur template. This is kind of the same exact thing I'm running into with the other one. So I am going to do exactly what I did with the other one, and I'm going to create a task to break this. This is something I can easily crank out today. These are all to-dos that came up from a past conference that I think I'm just going to hold off on. I think I've already done this. This is old. I'm gonna work on this as well, but actually what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna put this under an existing parent task. Okay, so that's now housed under a main task. This has been snoozed, but actually I'm going to circle back to this today, because I think it would be something to just quickly check out and decide if that's something worth doing. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while, so I actually think that would be a great task for me to do today. Put that on main priority. And this is also something that I think I should do, but I'm going to put this on Saturday because this is more kind of like a personal exploratory task. So we'll go ahead and put that on Saturday. So I cleaned up my task inbox. Let's go ahead and go back to the week. Then I'll look at my notes inbox. I actually looked at that recently, and I've also reviewed both of these. So I just kind of review my vision. And then once I've done all of that, I click for it to be completed and I pop over to the next week. So once we're over into the next week, I apply the weekly review template. I've kind of learned that I'm not going to apply the template for my weekly reviews on the next week, because I'll sometimes make updates and make changes. And then what I will usually do, I used to do this at the end of the week. I've actually started doing it at the beginning of the week. I kind of try to set an image at the start that kind of conveys like what I want for this week. I'll be honest, I need to make some sales. So we are going to go ahead and make the cover photo here a money cover photo, and we're going to make the icon a money icon because this needs to be sales this week. Now, in terms of how I plan, I don't do as much like time blocking or anything like that. What I essentially do is I just kind of review things, and I review this top part of the page. So here I've got my focuses for the week. So these are the objectives I'm working on. These are the projects I'm working on. And in this, you can see how much time I've spent working on this project, how many days the project has left to go. And these are all properties I created. How many things have been started, how many things are in progress, how many things have been completed. I will say, I think some of these are messed up. So I do think I might need to go in and fix some of these. We'll work on that a little bit later. And then I can go through and I can see this week's task. This is where I usually do a lot of the planning. So I will probably go back to like previous weeks and redistribute some of the tasks that are in here. You can see there's a lot of OG tasks that never got tackled that I need to kind of redistribute to upcoming weeks. And actually something that I've really enjoyed doing to do that, I'm going to go ahead and move my face over to here, is I've really enjoyed using the AI agent to do that. Let me show you what this looked like. I went back to a previous conversation where I did something like this before, and I basically said, okay, I have way too many tasks in my all task database that are in the past. I really need to go through them, reassign them, decide whether they're priorities or if they should be backburnered. I have 95 tasks on my to-do list for today, and all that mindset work I've done to know I don't need to complete those doesn't deal with the fact that I'm putting too many things on my to-do list. So I would like for you to go through them, reassign them to later, maybe way later, maybe not give them a due date at all, or maybe delete them all together, and I need you to help me do that. Can you do that? So it kind of went back and forth, and it did all of this, and it made several changes. Now, I actually almost feel like it audited a little bit too hard. So it's designated a couple things for tomorrow. It pushed several things to next week because I'm running a challenge inside of my community this week. If you're watching this live, come over and join us. It's the Mindset Systems Challenge. And then it moved several tasks back. It also stripped 24 would-be nice tasks, 5 hold-off tasks, 14 next priority tasks, old stale tasks, and 3 duplicate tasks and 1 vague schedule tasks. Actually, I'm looking at that going, now you made some mistakes. So the follow-up tasks should not have been marked as complete because they aren't complete. What schedule task did you mark as complete? Don't do it unless you know it's complete. So this is why it's important to double check the agent, because it does make some mistakes. And I would also like you to show me the other tasks that you stripped dates from. Did you delete any tasks? I don't think it did, because the AI agent's really good at showing you when it's about to delete pages, and it asks whether or not it does, but I'm still just gonna ask. Okay, so yeah, like this is somebody that I need to actually follow up with. Delete any tasks. I'm gonna go ahead and just look at each of these tasks. This is right, this was a vague schedule thing, and as we already said, this has been completed. I think what I'm just gonna say is, instead of removing the dates from those tasks, unless you sincerely think they are not priorities right now, I would like you to redistribute those tasks on future days. Look at my Google Calendar connection for days where I have time, and please try to align the tasks with my daily themes in my daily pages. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell it what all of my daily themes are. Okay, so I went ahead and I prompted it to redistribute those tasks. The AI agent does do this. I don't have direct access to your Google Calendar. It does. I have a Google Calendar connection. So sometimes what I have to do to get it to actually look at my Google Calendar is I need to select the Google Calendar connection. Okay, I'm also kind of making some changes as it's working over here. So it's doing a lot of this for me. And what I like about this is now the majority of things are no longer in the past. Now I do have this one, update Burnout-Proof business with, that should be in the future. AEO, optimize your website, which I'm also going to move into the future. I moved it to next Monday because I have a lot of time. Build VIP day strategic infrastructure, I'm going to move to the following Monday. Those are all things I do on my CEO day, but it's redistributing a lot of these things. So now I'm just going to kind of manually go through and check its work, and you can see how much less stuff I have on my to-do list for today. So this is a good reason why I'm going through this, is like that doesn't exist anymore. That might be something I have time for today. That might be something I actually might have time to do that tomorrow, because that can be a background task. That will work on Wednesday. Yes. So we're just going through and we're auditing shit. Very necessary. So we're just going to go through and we're going to continue just making sure the distribution of tasks look really good. This is really the extent of the planning that I do when I'm planning for an upcoming week. Okay. And now it didn't do a great job of moving stuff off of my Saturday. So we're going to go through and audit my Saturday stuff. That is a personal task, so we'll keep that. I'll do that on Sunday. Okay, so then, see, this is better. Now, the only two things that I have on Saturday are to input my car maintenance tasks into my database and to do a journaling prompt. Okay, beautiful. So now when I go to today's tasks, it's so much cleaner. And what I probably need to do is go through and actually make a hierarchy of what truly is the main priority. I think this is a would be nice. I think this is also a would be nice. I think this is a next priority. I think this is a next priority. Okay, so I think those are my main priorities. And what this does is it also is going to make it just so much cleaner and easier for me when I'm actually getting shit done on the day. So let's go ahead and let's collapse the AI agent down because we're done with him. So then the only other things that I have on this page is the people that I need to follow up with here, what I'm selling this week, and the parent pieces of content that I'm working on. So then these are all super top of mind for me. So once I do that, this has been planned, and I actually used to plan the Friday before, which is why I have a separate button for when it's been planned. And when it's been planned, it changes this status to planned. But actually the week's also in progress. So I need to kind of consolidate this down a little bit because the week is in progress. So now I'm all planned. I'm ready to go. What I would do now is I would pop into my Monday page and I would start getting shit done. So it's nice and clean, keeps things nice and simple. I usually do a Notion tip of the week on Monday mornings in my school community. So if you're not in my school community, what are you doing? You should come over and join us. And then I also will do the who am I following up with, what am I selling, and then check on my KPIs, which is down here. So yeah, there you go. That is it. That is the end of my Notion weekly review. And you can see I leverage the AI agent a lot to do my actual weekly review, to look for patterns, but also to do things like audit tasks, which has become one of my favorite things to use the AI agent for. To go through and be like, all right, Ellen, you got a little over ambitious. Let's audit this shit. The AI agent is so stinking helpful for that. You saw in the video that I mentioned multiple times my school community. It's called the Burnout-Proof community because everything I do is all about helping you burn out-proof your life and your business
through your systems, and Notion is a big part of how we do that. We actually do a Notion tip of the week every single Monday morning. So if that is something that appeals to you, head on over there, join us. We can answer your Notion questions, and you can also get deeper implementation support to start building out the systems that you want to build in your Notion space. But with that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.